All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to the latest episode of Pancakes with Principals. My name's Alex Jones, and my co-host is Ken Frank. We are excited to bring you our first live episode. And so, Pancakes with Principals, for those of you joining us today, is an interview series created by the Fresno YMF of the American Society of Civil Engineers. We will discuss topics including career paths, work dynamics, current events, professional development with featured civil engineering leaders within our community. This episode is the Mug with Doug edition.
So tonight, our guest is Doug Taylor, a good friend of mine and many of the people on this call, I know that. He is the Technical Services Manager for Outback Materials, which is a concrete supplier in the Fresno Madera area, as well as the surrounding mountain communities from Yosemite to Kings Canyon. Doug currently develops and manages quality control processes and supervises field and laboratory technicians. He is a licensed civil engineer who's had a diverse range of experience throughout his career in the civil engineering industry that includes serving in the U.S. Air Force up in Alaska, an extensive construction materials testing and inspection career, as well as 12-year tenure with CAL FIRE. He has served as president of ASCE Fresno branch and San Francisco section of ASCE. Currently, he's the disaster preparedness chair for California for ASCE, which is also known as Region 9, and is an instructor for the safety assessment program known as SAP. So welcome, Doug. Hope your mug is filled and ready to go.
It sure is. Nice intro, Ken. Very well done.
Thank you for joining us. What are you drinking tonight?
Just my regular Coors Light, classic. Nothing foo-foo.
Yeah,
how about you, Ken?
I have some Modelo in my hand-blown glass mug.
Nice. And I have my mug that Sarah gave me for Christmas.
What's in it, though, Alex?
Huh?
What's in it?
What's in it? I got the Valley Sunrise from Tioga Sequoia. Yeah.
We're all ready.
Yeah.
Okay, Doug. So I gave a little brief introduction, but why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself before you started your professional career?
Okay, so I was an Air Force brat. My dad was a career Air Force pilot. So born in Victoria, Texas, moved around quite a bit, South Carolina, Ohio, Massachusetts, back to Ohio, and finally upstate New York, Rome, New York, from pretty much the 6th grade through college. And let's see, going through high school, I really didn't even know what a civil engineer was, but I had applied for an Air Force ROTC scholarship, and shockingly, opened my mail one day, and they gave me a 4-year scholarship to be a navigator, which is what they call Category 1, pilot, navigator, missile man, that sort of thing. Well, I applied to Syracuse quickly because I hadn't even applied to a school with Air Force ROTC, and they accepted me, and I went there for the first week, freshman orientation, and was registering for classes in the gym as I was going to be a biology major of all things. And they called my name out over the PA system. Well, Doug Taylor report to the professor of aerospace sciences, whose office was in the corner of the gym. So I went in there, and he says, "Well, sorry, son, but there's been a medical error in your records. Your eyes aren't qualified to be a navigator." And I says, "Well, we did sign a contract, and it is your mistake." So they quickly changed some rule, and actually, I think I was more of a guinea pig. They wanted to change this rule all along because they wanted to offer 4-year scholarships to architects and engineers, which they were having trouble getting into the services. So they changed some rule, and a couple days later, I had to change my major from biology to something else. I'd always actually wanted to be an architect, but by then I'd seen enough of architecture schools that I thought, nah, that's not what I want to do. So the colonel opened the book and he said, civil engineering designs roads, bridges, structures, buildings. And I said, that sounds good. And so that's how I picked my career. Um, I'm really glad I did. In 42 years of being a civil engineer, I've never had a day of unemployment. I often have two jobs. um, but so I owed the Air Force 4 years after I graduated, and they sent me to Alaska. And I thought, what did I do wrong that they sent me there? But it turned out to be a real blessing because I loved it up there. After I'd been up there a month, I was only supposed to be there 2 years, and I asked them to keep me there as long as possible, which was 4 years. Had a great experience in the Air Force. The military is a great way to start, just like they advertise. They give you all kinds of responsibility as much as you can handle, and really enjoyed it. Ready for promotion to captain, and they were offering me a regular commission, but I decided I needed to stay up there in Anchorage longer. We were attending a really great church up there, and I wanted to stay. So I got out of the Air Force, went to work for the Corps of Engineers, who had just started to a project management Air Force division. The Air Force isn't its own construction agent. They use either NAVFAC or Army Corps of Engineers to design their major construction projects. So I started doing that with the Air Force Project Management section. Great job. What's so wonderful is you learn all about architecture and electrical and mechanical interior design. Every day was a day to learn new stuff. And it was a great job because you pretty much had to keep track of your AE firms in the lower 48. So I was often flying down to the lower 48 to check on them, which was nice to get a little outside of Alaska every now and then. Anyway, did that for 11 years, and they were ready to promote me to a GS 13 at the young age of 30. But again, every time I've made a career change, it's always been for lower pay and a lesser job. But that's one thing I always tell young engineers is don't be afraid to take lower pay, because if you choose the right job, you'll be good at it and your pay will increase regardless. So, in fact, that's the three things I used to tell the concrete lab students. The three conditions for looking for a job. Number one is who's your direct supervisor, right? Because that's hour by hour. If you don't like the person, you're going to hate your job. If you don't have respect for that person, it just won't be enjoyable. The second thing is the job itself. Do you like the job? Is it going to be challenging to you? Will it further your career? And the last thing you look at is pay and benefits, because if the first two are correct, you'll do well, and pay and benefits always follow. So, um, after 11 years in Anchorage, my brother-in-law was getting ready to move down to Fresno to pastor a small church, and we thought we'd come along and help him. And well, he went back to Alaska shortly after that, but we stayed, and I started with Twining Laboratories and worked there for about 6.5 years. Went to CMI for about 9.5 years and did a 1 year stint with Technicon, and then I went over to Cal Fire for 12 years and retired from that 3.5 years ago. And here I am at Calaveras working Monday through Thursday, and I get a 3-day weekend every week.
So it
Nice.
sounds like the only time you didn't work was prior to about preschool. or something like that.
I was working there, and yeah, I was working there for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a pretty amazing career.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny I can't get any young civil engineers interested in the in concrete technology because it sure pays. There are not many of us around, and it pays quite well.
How did you get into concrete technology?
It was a mistake.
Okay. I mean, you're like the guru of it in this area, and so
Well,
love to hear more about how you got into it.
Shamefully, when I went to work for Twining, which I was the replacement for Darren Williams and Kent Balker, who had bugged out of Twining to start Technicon. Um, when I started working there, I actually didn't know the constituents of concrete. I'm ashamed to say. I do now. That's good. But so it was during my Twining years that you learn a lot about, testing and concrete materials. But then I went to work for CMI and certainly learned a lot more there. Fortunately, CMI was owned by Lehigh Heidelberg, so every year there was a week-long technical conference where some of the best minds in concrete got together every year. And in addition to playing golf or whatever, you got these really good technical conferences to learn about a lot of things.
Nice.
Other than that, it's like cooking. You try things and see how it tastes.
Yeah, yeah. You kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but I was just curious, what's the best advice you were given while in school or early in your career, or best advice you give people in school right now? I mean, you've touched on it, but
Yeah, I think
is there any other pearls of wisdom?
those three things when you go looking for a job, which I think a lot of young engineers chase the money, which is not a smart thing to do. Um, the other pieces of advice in college, I learned that time management is a pretty important thing. You can always make more money, but you can't ever get more time. So actually, when you get my age, time becomes more precious than money. Uh, so time management is a pretty important thing. And even there, you have to strike a balance. It's not all work, 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 although sometimes it feels like that. Uh, but I really enjoy fun. Well, oh, Ken, it just looked like that green screen thing when you did.
Yeah. Sorry.
You're freaking me out there. Even at work, you got to put some fun into that because if you don't, it's just no fun.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. You definitely have to enjoy what you do, and work is making money should be a byproduct. It should be a result of it, but it shouldn't be the main reason, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
So it sounds like you've obviously really enjoyed a lot of the jobs you've held over the years, including working for Outback right now. What part of the job do you find most rewarding um, at Outback, where you're currently working?
Yeah, what I really like my job right now, number one, it's a great company. We all work together as a team there, and it's just really wonderful to have that. There's no competition between each of us, and we're owned by a great owner. But really, what it's afforded me is kind of the way I'm wired, and I think I probably got this in my genes from my grandfather, but I just like to help people. And in concrete, end or there's no end of helping people because people need a lot of help with concrete oftentimes. And so I really enjoy that part of my job is, somebody's wanting to do something strange or different. And so I'm there and oftentimes, it's not a money maker more than it is, hey, we're just here to help whoever we can with their projects.
Okay. Well, that brings me to my next question. What's your current daily morning routine, and has it changed over the years with the job or with age?
Well, maybe when I was working at Cal Fire, actually, it was my boss's boss who brought me in with my boss and told me that he was giving me a project that I told him I know for a fact I'll just never get to it because of the work. And pretty much he told me, well, just maybe work harder. And in a way, that was a blessing. But what I'm leading up to is when I went to, I told Curtis long ago with Curtis Lovett, the owner of Outback. I told him long ago when I retire from Cal Fire, I'd like to come work for you because I like concrete. And so I called him up, and he says, "Just tell me what you want to make." And anyway, what I did tell him is I only want to work Monday through Thursday because, at my age, I'm, be 65 in June. I told him if I work 5 days a week, I'll only last a year and I'll just quit and live on what I have. But if I work 4 days a week, I can go 4, 5, 7 years, who knows? And that's really nice. There's nothing like a 3-day weekend every week, especially for a golfer or a skier or a boarder or whatever. Anyway,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. Um, so, uh, what was your question?
What is your morning routine?
Yeah,
My
your morning.
morning routine. That's what I was getting around to.
When you're
Or
not
daily
ready
routine.
to hit the slope.
So when I worked at Cal Fire, it was a struggle to get to work at 8, some mostly 8:30, whatever. But now when I went to work at Outback, I'm there at 7 o'clock nearly religiously, primarily because of traffic. When I leave at 6:30, I can get to work at 20 minutes instead of 30 or 40 if I got there at 8. Which is nice because I generally leave at 3:30. So my morning routine is a little different. Uh, haven't drank soda in a while. Maybe some of you might be shocked to hear that because I'm pretty much a Coca-Cola addict. But that's helped lately. But my morning routine is basically get in and see what's in the inbox. There's usually mixed design submittals that need to be done. Uh, Looking at performance of our mixes, we track everything. And anyway, it's a nice, easy. I shouldn't say easy workload, but it's just the perfect amount. There's not too much and there's not too little.
Nice. I would say that's all great, but Pepsi, where to be. So.
Did you say the P word?
Have you guys seen that commercial where the guy gets too, like, the kid is too short? He goes to the vending machine and gets 2 Cokes, stands on the Cokes, and then goes up and then gets the Pepsi.
No.
I'll send you that video.
Please.
He's got the right frame of mind.
Oh dear.
What? So you talked a little bit about your work schedule, but what do you most appreciate about an employee or your employees or coworkers? What do you?
Well, I guess reliability and doing the job well. Um, when it wasn't long before I started working Outback, we set up a laboratory of our own, and I was needing a technician. Well, I found this fella who was being underpaid at a local lab, terribly underpaid, and I interviewed him. He wasn't much to look at, but I'll tell you, he's been the best laboratory technician I've ever worked with in the 30 years of being in Fresno. He's uh he's not fast, but he's very precise. He writes legibly, very neatly, and he keeps a nice clean lab, and he does everything you ask him to do without complaint ever. So I'm just crazy about my lab tech. But that's kind of what I look for in an employee is somebody who's not just there to punch a clock, but you're kind of vested in helping the customers and being part of the team that does that. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you? Is that something that you pick up on interviews, or is that something that you meet somebody and then you kind of get a better understanding of them once you've worked with them for a while?
Just dumb luck.
Oh, okay.
So, well, certainly in interviews, you can weed out certain people that aren't going to be wired that way. Um, with this particular fellow, I think I just got very lucky. Um, uh, yeah. So pretty much when I look for an employee, I'm looking for somebody who's motivated and interested in learning, and maybe they're not too cocky, but they're confident, but they still want to learn. They know they don't know everything. I don't know everything. So I think that's pretty much what you look for when you're in an interview is somebody who's going to not just punch a clock, but be vested in it. That makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally. I agree. So I'm going to move on to the next question. It's a little less professional here, but going with the current times. Um, is there an aspect of life that you think people appreciate more now after a year of social distancing, mask wearing, and never-ending takeout?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think we're all hungry for personal um, get-togethers, for giving people hugs again, and for socializing. It's huge right now. And some people, it really depends on your risk aversion, whether you're doing some of that now or you're waiting until this COVID-19 passes. But it's a tough one. I mean, I think we've all missed human contact. I mean,
Yeah,
it's nice to see your faces on a screen, but it's so much better to be together.
Yeah, we truly hope to do this. Like the whole idea was to have this event in person, either at Fresno State, where it's like a central spot for our community, or at people's place of work. Their firms, their maybe pair it up with tours, things like that. So
Yeah.
we're super excited to be able to do that in the future. But for now, Zoom will do.
I agree. I think that there's a lack of energy. Like you can't feel the energy that comes off of the people you're around when you're face to face in person and having a good time. Versus, yeah, I can still see all your faces, but it is a little different. I'm still here in my hole.
Yeah,
It's getting deeper and deeper every day.
little cabin fever issue for sure.
Yeah.
On that note, do you see any innovations in the way we work as a result of this social distancing and
Well, let's pause that
remote
question
work?
for a minute, and one more statement on the previous one, and that would be is I'm not very risk averse. And
Hmm.
so I've done quite a bit of traveling. And by the way, it's a great time to travel because flights are
Yeah.
cheap, hotels are cheap. It's amazing out there. But anyway, now things that are changing, man, you hear stories about companies that they're not going to go back to offices anymore. They're going to save money and let everybody work from home and work remotely. And wow, that might really change the whole real estate realm. Now, maybe what they'll do is they'll convert a lot of these offices into apartments and maybe have more, you know, uh, places to live. Right now, this country has a serious homeless problem,
Hmm.
and it doesn't seem like anybody's solving it. Well, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I really see the third place. You have your home, you have your work, and then you have that third place really coming into play in the future. Having remote work offices, co-work spaces, just coffee shops, things like that is going to be a big thing.
Yeah, and I think one
Yeah.
of our previous guests said this was quite a few months ago, had mentioned they had already taken steps to reduce their office space by, I don't know if it was like 30 to 40%
Yeah.
permanently. So,
Hmm.
Yikes.
yeah.
But
Switch.
looking farther ahead, you wonder about what we just talked about before this question, whether people working remotely will get tired of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess time will tell. We'll see how this test goes and experiment.
I know when I
Yeah.
work at home, it's okay, but I much prefer going to the office.
Yeah. Yeah, I would think it would be more of like a flex work schedule where you're working maybe a couple days at home, a couple days at work, at the office, things
Yeah.
like that. Or yeah. Switching gears a little bit, on a more personal, like leadership standpoint, what kind of books do you like to read, or what book or books have influenced your life?
Well, certainly the one I read the most is the Bible, but
There you
um, other books other than that, I really enjoy reading Bill Bryson. I don't know if any of you read Bill Bryson, but he's quite a writer. Um, I like documentaries and anything about airplanes. Being
go.
an Air
Nice.
Force brat, probably, I don't know. Um, Things like that. I read Sports
Yeah.
Illustrated. Some of the best writing today, I think, is in Sports Illustrated.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to the Castle Air Museum, Doug, up in Atwater?
Yeah, in fact, before Castle closed down, my brother, who's also a career Air Force pilot and had flown B-52s out on Guam, his former wing commander was at Castle, and so my brother and I were eating in the officers club, and the wing commander came by, and I got to meet him, and they were doing some really cutting edge environmental remediation up there. So he invited me to come up and see this, and so I'm not stupid. I'll take him up on that offer. So I called him up, and he set me up with a captain to take me around most of the day.
Oh man.
But we did see some environmental remediation, but the captain basically got me into the B-52 simulator for 2 hours, and so that was kind of fun flying the B-52 simulator. And yeah,
Yeah, I believe that's where they trained all the B-52 pilots was Castle.
Oh wow.
But
really?
it was yeah.
I don't think so.
Oh,
At least
okay.
my brother wasn't trained there. I don't know. I'd have to ask him that.
Okay, I can't say all, but it was a major hub for
Sure.
the B-52.
It was a major hub for B-52s because of the proximity to flying west.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, well, one thing about the B-52, I don't know if I'd been around B-52s most of my life. In Rome, New York was a B-52 base. And all that time, I never realized when a B-52 turns, it doesn't have ailerons on the wings like a normal plane. You know how it turns?
No.
It actually has these little tabs on the inside of both wings that are called spoilers. And when it wants to turn right, it flips up these spoilers on the right wing. And so that lift on the right wing
Wow.
decreases and it starts sagging. And that's how it banks,
Wow.
which is why when you fly the darn thing, you make a motion and it takes 20 seconds before it actually happens. It's crazy flying that thing. Anyway.
All
I
right.
a while back, Sarah got me the Audible subscription, and one of my favorite books on that was listening to First Man and how Neil Armstrong did all the flight testing, and oh man, it was just incredible.
Yeah, the right stuff.
Test pilots are something else, like
Yeah,
nerve of steel.
I like the book Jaeger. That was a good one. Those
Yeah.
days are long gone.
So Doug, throughout your career, I'm sure you received a number of compliments from clients after completing certain projects. But can you name one compliment that really stood out to you from a client that you've never forgot?
Was this one of those questions? Um, Actually, it's hanging in my office. When I was punching out after the 7 years with the Corps of Engineers, of course, I was a project manager working for the Air Force, the nicest thing I got was this plaque from the Air Force that told me basically I'd done a really good job for them. And it's normally, yeah, I have the plaque from the Corps of Engineers and things like that. But what I really enjoyed was hearing from a customer that you really did a good job for them. Yeah, it's one of my favorites.
I agree. It makes you feel good inside.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess, I mean, that's what you do as a civil engineer. I mean, you're working for the good of the people, and when they say thank you,
Yeah,
Right.
that's what
you're
you
a
want.
civil servant.
Yep.
We're
Exactly.
going to switch gears a little bit, but I just wanted to tell everyone we're going to have audience questions. So if you can put them in the chat and direct them to Tyler at ASCE SF section, we can add those to the end.
All right. Doug, what's your favorite? I know you have a lot of hobbies, but what's your favorite hobby at the moment?
That'd be
Or maybe your favorite hobby per season. Let's put it that way.
well. I think these days it'd be track days with my motorcycle. It's just a blast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it got better when I put slicks on the motorcycle and got tire warmers and started passing everybody.
Nice. What's
Yeah.
your top speed?
You know what? It really isn't all about top speed. That's a function
Okay.
of how long the straightaway is at what any particular track. But what it's all about is, trying to get the perfect line and the perfect turns and facing somebody down and that's in front of you. That's what I like.
Man.
By the way, if you ever go to Vegas, it's a real ball of fun to drive some of these exotic cars on these tracks. I used to always go to exotics racing, but this last time in December, I went to it's called Dream Racing. That's the track to go to. I got in a 2020 Corvette C8 and got up to 181 on the straightaway. But again, it's
Wow.
not
Yeah,
straightaways.
yeah.
Although it's kind of fun when you're doing 181 and you see the 90-degree right turn coming up. That's
Oh
exciting.
man, that
Yeah.
reminds me of some comedian had a amazing story of raising his Viper. I think
Oh,
he's a Fresno guy or a Central Valley guy. What's his name? I don't remember.
that'd be a wonderful car to drive.
Yeah, yeah.
I've done
So
quite a bit of that. It's a blast too, and it's worth, it's 150, $200, but see, in my mind, things aren't so important, but experiences are.
yeah,
And experiences are worth the money, like dog
so
sledding in Alaska, right?
yeah. Oh
Yeah,
man, Rimac in Alaska was amazing. I can't wait to go back.
there's no earthquakes this time.
7.2. I still remember it.
Yeah. I was bummed. I left right before the earthquake. I left like at 10 p.m. and
Oh,
didn't get to experience it, but I really wish I would have. That would have been.
I think I told you that, there was a Thursday meeting with the Region 9 board, and we had the president of ASCE and the president-elect and the two people vying for president-elect. And, I always try to make a little joke. And I told them, I've scheduled an earthquake for this weekend, but don't worry, it's just an exercise. Funny. And I told two classes on Saturday the same thing. And when it happened Sunday morning, I didn't do that the following year in Los Angeles because that wouldn't be funny. Oh, by the way, I wasn't staying in the Hilton. I was at a 3-story wood-framed hotel out by the airport. And
Oh wow.
being the brilliant engineer that I am, when it started shaking, I stood up by the bed, and all I could think of was, "Yeah, I hope this doesn't get any stronger." I didn't get under a door frame or anything. It's just, oh well, not
um.
not too bright.
Yeah. And all your travels, can you recall a vacation destination that you would suggest to people now or when they feel safe to venture out again?
Well, you probably know. I think I've been to Maui 24 times now.
Mhm.
Um, my wife and I had 7 children, and now we have 14 grandchildren. And so every summer we'd go there for 2 to 3 weeks to get away from them when they were teenagers, of course. But Maui is a real vacation, simply because it's when you get off the plane, you feel like you're on vacation. It's so relaxing over there. And there's a lot to do, or there's nothing to do, but it's all good over there.
Yeah.
Too bad it's too expensive to move there.
Yeah. We're gonna go into a speed round now, and
Alex,
so yeah, go ahead.
before we go in, I have a picture on my desktop right here from the hotel in Alaska. I thought I would share if I can share my screen. It's
Is
just
it
right outside my room when I woke up.
Yeah,
is it
Tyler, can you give him access to share?
basement?
Yeah, I just turn on the option so multiple people can share. So you should be able to.
Can you see it?
No.
And I don't remember you going to sleep that night. I think you stayed up, didn't you?
I think I've been asleep for about 45 minutes at this point.
That's right.
Yeah.
Um,
All right, we're sharing.
yeah, so the hotel was a Hilton. I think I was on like the 8th or 9th floor, and it was an L-shaped building. My room was right at the L shape, and so I walk out after the shaking stopped, and this was like a joint, I guess, maybe where the two structures meet at like the reentrant corner, but it would completely separated from the floor, and the drywall was all over the place. And it was interesting.
That, of course, is a seismic joint.
Yeah, I guess it worked.
Yeah, and there
Yeah.
was permanent deformation, as I recall.
Was there?
Yeah, it's a 16-story Hilton tower there, and so as I recall, there was a little bit of permanent deformation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when we got back, Doug, you sent everyone the seismograph, like the picture of all the seismographs around Anchorage. And it was really cool to see that. It was like a little schematic of
Yeah, can you
where.
imagine the Good Friday earthquake in 1964 was a 9.6?
Yeah,
That'd be terrifying.
yeah.
All right,
So
Alex,
this,
okay, go
yeah,
ahead.
this speed round, we talked a lot about Hawaii. So this speed round is just going to be one or two word answers.
Hmm.
And the first one is Hawaii or Alaska.
Hawaii,
Powder or groomers?
groomers. I'm old.
Football or baseball.
Football, get real.
Local beer or an import?
Bud Light,
Car or truck.
car,
Movie at home or movie in the theater?
home.
Yeah, I would say lately it's been home. Coca-Cola or Diet Coke or Pepsi. I only say Pepsi because my wife works there.
That's not a choice. It's always Coca-Cola.
There you
Don't say that P word.
go.
Hamburgers or tacos?
Wow, that's a tough one. I think tacos.
Yeah, it'd be unFresno to say hamburgers, I think.
I'm pretty sure it's tacos always. Winter or summer?
Oh dear. Both.
Winter in Hawaii.
Summer in Alaska?
Well, actually, I always tell people if you want to go see Alaska, the way it's most beautiful is go in February.
Yeah. Winter there was amazing.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
All right, we got one more. Outback or Cal Fire?
Get real. Outback. Cal Fire was a great job for 10 of the 12 years. 10 of the years, was some working indoors and some outdoors. I like to get dirty every now and then, and But the last 2 years was just all contracting. They threw a bunch of money at us because of the drought, and it just was annoying. Contract, and that the problem is the government. They tie your hands behind your back and they say, "All right, get it done."
I'm gonna throw one wild card in there. Hugs or kisses?
Depends who.
That's what I said. Yeah. Could be chocolate kisses.
I was thinking Hershey's, but
Yeah.
Oh no, chocolate.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's all we have. So
yeah, we can. Tyler, do you want to get the audience questions going?
Yeah, for sure. It looks like Matthew already has one. Do you want to go ahead with that?
Yeah. So as somebody who reviews on my end, reviews a lot of concrete mix designs and often has comments and stuff, I guess from the other end of things where you're the one, submitting the mix design and then, responding to the comments or changing the design if necessary, what are some of your biggest pet peeves when you are dealing with responding to that?
Do I have to answer this?
Oh yeah.
Well,
gotta elevate everybody up.
Yeah. Here's the deal is, when you submit a mix, it goes to the subcontractor, then goes to the contractor, then goes to the architect, then goes to the engineer. And so there's such a path that's convoluted. It's so much better for the engineer and say the mix designer to talk together, because so many times I can get you a better mix if I know what you want, if I know what you're trying to achieve. But that whole process messes it all up. Case in point, just today, SCE and Mammoth Pools Powerhouses wanted to pour a little peeny 4 yards of concrete, and so I get the requirement from the subcontractor, 4,500 psi, 6% air. Oh, okay, I've got a mix that can do that, so I gave him that. Well, then SCE comes back and says, well, we want a type K cement for non-shrink. Oh, well, that's a horse of a different color. So I give them 2 options, but then in that whole chain, it gets confused. And so finally, I just got a hold of the engineer with SCE, and we talked, and he understood what I was trying to give him as option, and then he understood, or I understood what he needed. So we arrived at the right. Well, it doesn't happen very often. Plus, I see these specs all the time that are crazy, 3-inch max slumps and things like that. It drives me nuts.
That was kind of another question I had was, what are some of your biggest peeves when you're dealing with the specs?
If that concrete flows at all, I don't want it.
Well, yeah, everybody thinks dry concrete is better. It's not. If you're doing a flat work, you've got a 4-inch max slump, that's a 3 plus or minus 1. That's dry to place and consolidate effectively. And then I see specs that I've got a 0.45 water cement ratio, but I only need 2,500 psi concrete. Well, 0.45 is 5,500 psi with my materials. What do you want, really? Here's another thing that I see too, Matt. For every pound of cement that we use, you're producing a pound of CO2. I see so much waste. Somebody's not on mute, I guess.
Is that your TV, Doug?
No, I see so much waste in over specking concrete mixes.
Matthew.
Well, I need a 6-sack. Well, you only need 3,000 psi. What are you doing with a 6-sack? Things like that. It's a waste, and we're putting too much CO2 in the air. Pretty soon, we're all going to be Cal Green people and start thinking more about, hey, stop using too much cement and over-specking concrete. That's what I see. Did I say too much?
No, I agree.
Oh, dear.
Yeah,
Next.
yeah. Hey guys, don't be shy with the questions. Go ahead, throw something in the chat if you want to ask. So I will. I know I have a question dialed up here. Is obviously, like Ken was saying earlier, you've been involved with ASCE for a long time, many different roles. What do you think has been the most fulfilling aspect of it that you've had of being involved?
Oh dear. You know,
Is
it
that
was
to
it was Tony Kell that got me involved with ASCE years ago. I remember when I started working at Twining in '89, I went to a couple ASCE meetings, but it was pretty dead. But when Tony took over, he had a way of energizing the whole branch and using people in what they were good at. And I kind of caught that bug from Tony. He really is kind of, if you ask me, like the father of our ASCE branch. He's the driver behind it. Uh, so anyway, the thing about ASCE is you get out of it what you put in and then some. I really do believe that, and I can't say it any other way. Yeah, I've done some good things, and it's taken a bit of time and work, but it's all worth it. I mean, look at the people that we get to brush up against. But you know what? I am so impressed with the YMF. You guys are crazy good. I mean, you are the act. Yeah, you guys are the activity of the what the branch used to be active. Now, yeah, and because of COVID, there's been hardly any activity. But YMF, you guys are killing it.
we're itching to get going back on to get back
Yeah.
up and running again for sure. Because yeah, we miss seeing people for sure.
Do you
It's
guys
really it
get,
really is a great group, and we have great leadership. So.
do you guys get the same impression because you guys are way above even where Tony and I and all of that was years ago. Yeah, we were active, but nothing compared to you guys.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure, everybody else does too.
I think
Is,
we feed off of your energy and multiply it. It's exponentially crazy.
Absolutely.
We're all in trouble.
Yeah, for me it was super exciting. Getting to go to like I think Ken was president for YMF, and getting to go to those first meetings and getting to meet people, and going to Rhinebeck and all that. So good
Yeah,
times.
wow. Yeah, it's been amazing watching you guys.
Doug, I'd love to. I mean, we had it a little bit at the AAC luncheon with Martin Queering. He talked about the Creek Fire, but I'd love for you to expand on the SAP program and your experiences with Paradise Fire and the Creek Fire. How they, could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Number one, I'd encourage anybody who's able-bodied to get SAP certified simply because when these disasters happen, you're probably going to want to help. That's kind of our nature. Now, the Paradise Fire, we were working for one guy. He was not only the building official for Paradise, but he was also the fire marshal. And it was really simple because he knew exactly what he wanted us to do. And it was a pretty well-oiled machine up there, to be honest with you. But I will tell you, let me make sure I don't need to caveat any of this. That last with the Creek Fire, that was the best team. We didn't have nearly as good a team up in Paradise as we had at the Creek Fire. Those were outstanding volunteers. But I thought their time was wasted. Fresno County was kind of giving us direction by committee. And that's one thing I learned is when that happens, you have to have one person in charge that knows exactly what they want to do and stop this committee stuff because every day it would change and we'd get different directions and it slowed us down and they couldn't keep up with us, with the mapping and things like that. So I guess after that Creek Fire, I sent an email to Cal OES and I says, listen, Cal Fire goes through these fires before our teams get there. Okay. And when they do, they mark all these structures as red or green or black. And I was, in fact, I just got the email back from Cal OES tonight. And I told them it's a waste of volunteer time to go and red tag buildings that are burned to the ground. It's stupid. Who is going to go and live in there, right? If your home is burned to the ground, are you going to go live there? Of course not.
Obvious.
So why spend volunteer time, which is precious, to go and put red tags on these buildings that are burned to the ground? Cal Fire identified them, and their accuracy was like 0.5% error. It was really good. So I suggested to them to use a team like this most effectively, you want them going through and looking at the green and the yellows, things that are possibly habitable, aren't burned to the ground. Anyway, I still have to, get Cal OES to see some sense in all that, but we'll see.
Sounds a little like there's some bureaucratic nonsense going on there.
Well, yeah, and the thing about it was, and that's what we learned too, is Fresno County had no idea there were these SAP volunteers. And so I tried to educate him before we actually showed up. This is what we do. This is how you can best use this. But again, the contact that we were working with, he had people above him that were saying, well, let's do this tomorrow, or let's do that the next day. And that's a terrible way to manage something like this.
Right. It looks like Kiana has a question. Then Matt, you can ask yours after.
Kiana, do you want to unmute?
Looks like she did.
Oh, okay.
Hello?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, hello. How many times have you volunteered with the SAP or like for the disasters
In a fire?
or in any
Oh, yeah, just twice, apparently,
okay.
in Creek Fire. There was a fire, Napa fire, the week after the Creek Fire, and I got a call, and they needed 6 or 7 volunteers. And I thought, yeah, no, I'm just gonna find 6 volunteers, and so that's what I did. They were pretty local to that area, so I didn't go to that one.
Only a matter of time until there's an earthquake, though, right?
It would be, if we have a serious earthquake, it'll be pretty different. I think what'll happen is it'll tax all of the volunteers. We only have about 600 in all of Region 9 ASCE. I think what'll happen is more volunteers will want to participate, and they'll just train them, a half a day before they go out in the field. I think that's what'll probably happen, is they'll get certified on the spot.
What are the requirements to get certified? Do you have to be a licensed? You mentioned like being able-bodied.
Well, we'll just talk about the civil engineering part, because there's other, AIA or SEs. They can be at a CALBO people, certain building officials, and certain inspectors and ACIA people. But as far as civils, you have to be a registered civil engineer. And really, it's just taking that 5 or 6 hours. In my case, it's usually more like 4 because I talk fast. SAP training session. Now, because of COVID, they're actually online now. I did one in August for about 32 people. And the beauty of that is you can do it from your home. You don't have to travel. You just have to take an exam at the end. And I'm thinking of maybe doing one in possibly March. But you can actually do quite a few people at a time that way.
How can people get in touch with you or find out more about the SAP program?
Email?
We'll put that in the show notes or the description.
Yeah, I keep a running tab of people who are interested but haven't come to a class yet. And so when I set up a class, those are the first people I send an email out to that, hey, we're doing a class now if you want to jump in.
Nice.
Looks like you answered Matthew's question already with when the next SAP meeting is going to be. Highly recommend it. Already got my certification. I think it was last year, or no, it was a couple years ago. So that was, like you said, it was nice and quick.
Yeah.
I'd highly recommend it.
Free popcorn and Coca-Cola, now Pepsi.
I'm a Pepsi guy too. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, I remember the free lunch and the Coca-Cola.
You got to get your people converted.
Hard pass.
Kiana wants to ask how often you have to renew.
5 years, and you do it online. And the online exam is you can go back into the online course and get the answers. So that's the only way I passed.
Yeah, and yeah, you don't have to retake the course, right? You just have to pay.
Correct. But the deal about that is you have to keep your email current with Cal OES, or they won't, you won't get the reminder, and it'll lapse. What I'm really wanting to do as part of the committee is get the committee to go through and through the database, and a month or two before people are due to expire, is to contact them most of the times by telephone and say, hey, get online, get recertified.
All right. So last call for questions, guys. I'll ask one more myself before we get going out of here, unless anybody has any more questions after. I guess one thing I'll ask is, I know my first exposure with you, and I'm sure a lot of people in here too, is when you taught at Fresno State. So I wanted to ask how you originally got into teaching the concrete lab there. And yeah, that's my question.
I'll probably get myself into trouble with this answer, but so Dr. Laraldi was teaching that class on Saturdays, and he has like 4 kids. And I thought, that's not right that he should be taking Saturdays and teaching a class. Not only that, but I went in to audit one of his classes for one session, and they were learning things like set time by the VCOT needle. And I thought, what in the world are they learning that for? It's totally useless information. So, that's when I thought, well, I can get in there and teach practical concrete lab stuff. I think I may have disappointed students along the way by not spending more time in the lab, but I always ask them a question, what do you want to learn in there? There's really not that much to learn in the lab as there is in just general concrete knowledge. How do you do a mixed design? How do you review a mixed design? What's the chemistry involved in all of this stuff? Anyway, now this is the part that's going to get me in trouble. When they got 3 new professors, and one of them had, they needed classes to teach, they took over the concrete lab. I've been hearing stories that these people paying good money to get an education are learning nothing out of concrete lab anymore. And I've offered it out there to, hey, just give me one night, a 3-hour class, and I think I can cram enough in there to give them enough practical information that they can use when they graduate. But it hasn't happened yet. And I keep telling myself I got to get over there, the dean's office, and say, listen, this is not good. They're coming out of here without any knowledge like they should have.
They're going to be ordering those -3-inch slumps.
Yeah. And I'm going to have to slap them beside the head. What do you all think about that? Are they going to kick me out of the dean's office?
Well, I know when I was there, when I was attending, your class was one of the most well received, I think, and I certainly, part of my job, is to observe concrete pours pretty often. So, and what I learned there, I've definitely remembered. So,
good.
Yeah. Looks like Matt's got one more question. Do you want to unmute yourself, sir?
Yeah. So again, I think I was. I think I was kind of. I think it was your last class of concrete lab, and I know
That's
I gained.
it, Matt. It was you.
I know I ruined the whole batch. But I know, like Tyler mentioned, for my obviously for my job as well, do a lot of observations for concrete pours and stuff, and I know I gained a lot. And I think one of the things that was very valuable from your lab, you kind of touched on that you felt like some students maybe felt that you didn't get enough like laboratory experience. I think the thing that was useful, I remember you took us and kind of walked us around campus and would point out various cracks and be like, well, why was this formed? Was this, is this structural damage, or is this, concrete doing what concrete does and cracks? And I thought that was a very simple yet practical kind of rational knowledge that you don't really necessarily gain from just a strictly theoretical. So I guess my question is, do you feel like schools in general tend to teach too much theoretical and not enough practical, not just really to concrete, but kind of across the board? Because I know that was a big thing doing undergrad, and then again with my master's, that it's all very theoretical, and then you get into practice and you're like, well, I touch maybe 10% of the theoretical, and a lot of it's the practical side of things that I got to learn.
Yeah, that's a great question, Matt. And yes, I think colleges are more in tune to teaching a little bit too much technical and not enough practical. I think colleges like Cal Poly SLO are more geared to hands-on practical stuff, real life engineering. Uh, I know when I went to Syracuse, I had 7 semesters of calculus, a complete waste of time. Um, have I ever used calculus? Heck no. So could I have been learning other things? Yeah, when I first started my Air Force career, I was thrown into the deep pool, and here's a hobby center, three buildings, a pre-engineered tilt up double T precast side of the building, and then a building between those two in a seismic zone 4. And I had to learn really quick. I didn't even know what an open web steel joist was, because they weren't teaching that stuff. They weren't teaching you how you design a building, from the top down, so you get footing loads and then you recheck all this stuff. They don't teach enough practical information, I think. I know I got like 4 semesters of calculus, and not calculus, but structures. And mostly what we were writing programs in APL, and yeah, okay. So that was the beginning of computers in structural analysis. But what good is that unless you're going to go into that field? So anyway, I agree that, yeah, there's a little too much, but but you have to understand the people teaching it, they're PhDs, and that's where they come out of, is all the theoretical, and that's what they're supposed to theoretically teach. Uh, you have to learn the basics for sure, but hmm, there's a lot of college class time that's wasted, in my opinion, and it could be more practical stuff.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I do like the theoretical, because I think we do all like the theoretical to some extent, because we're engineers, we like to live in the theoretical land, but uh, the practical is certainly, I think, maybe just maybe a tiny bit overlooked for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you probably had to learn moment distribution, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing to learn. But do you have to write a computer program to do it? No, things like that.
Yeah. Well, I have the computer programs do a lot of our jobs for us, but actually knowing what's going into the computer program, so it's just not a black box. You spit in numbers and spits out numbers. Like, I think that's pretty important.
It is, and then looking at the results and making sure they're reasonable.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I guess going back to your thoughts on going greener in the concrete world, less cement, more innovation. So I guess you still need the theoretical side, because we got to keep innovating to push forward in the future and make have better solutions and more sustainable solutions. So
We're 20 years behind the Chinese and the Japanese in concrete technology. And that's because it takes so long to get new innovation into the building codes. And, I get that. It shouldn't take that long, though. It needs to be a shorter process. But I'll tell you, right now in the Bay Area, and it started in Marin County, and it started because they have access to these aggregates that are coming from British Columbia. They're called Orca aggregates. Those 5-sack Orca aggregates are always pushing 6,000 psi. 5-sack mixes in the Fresno region are 2,500 to 3,000. Okay. So this one guy started pressing for lowering the cementitious content of these materials because they can get the Orca aggregates there. But what he doesn't realize is those Orca aggregates are expensive, and they have to be barged down, and they're also available in LA. Anyway, all this to say is right now there's a big environmental movement coming out of Marin County and filtering to all those Bay Area counties to lower the cement content for carbon, to reduce the carbon footprint. But it requires really good aggregates. And what I see in Fresno, we're so far behind the environmental curve here. Shoot, Outback, had CO2 injection into our mixes for 3 years, and we finally pulled the plug on it this last summer because nobody was buying it. We were able to reduce the cement content of mixes by introducing CO2 into the mixes that increased the strength. But we're not a green Central Valley yet. Nobody cares about that stuff yet. Now it's going big time in the Bay Area and LA now. They're all jumping on, injecting CO2 now. But we were a little ahead of the curve. Maybe it'll eventually filter down. I don't know. But I really do see that so many times we're wasting cement when we shouldn't.
It's kind of awkward with the current code, especially Caltrans, because I know they require a minimum cementitious material for certain structural components. So that might want to be revisited at some point.
Yeah, that's another conversation.
Yeah, and that's what I was just about to add on as well, Tyler, is that I feel like it's not so much that the industry itself isn't ready to try to progress towards more sustainable materials and mixes, but I feel like a lot of times we're kind of, as the designer, we're held back a little bit by what code requirements are. And like Tyler said, Caltrans is definitely has a big culprit on the way some of their specs are written.
Yeah, a lot of city and county specs will refer to Caltrans, sort of. Yeah. Well, I guess I'll probably stop there.
Yeah.
Here again, City of Fresno, 6-sack minimums for this, and Fresno County, 6-sack minimums. And why? Do you really want that? Do you really need 45 to 5,000 psi? No.
What's something that you're excited about in the industry that's coming up, or something that you could share with us?
Well, we discovered an admixture a year and a half ago doing the Table Mountain Casino job, which was an amazing job. It's one of the first jobs I've seen where everybody worked together. The contractor, the engineer, the material suppliers, because everybody wanted speed. And we discovered this new admixture because, they wanted 3,000 PSI in 24 hours. and we were using Super P to get it. But in the summertime, that's a recipe for disaster because it sets so fast. We found this new admixture called ViscoFlow 2020, and it's type S. It's not really a plasticizer. It's sold as a workability retaining admixture. Really doesn't do a very good job at that. But what we found out at a 1.5% dosage of Super P, it's a polycarboxylate, so it's acting like a Super P. But the real secret is it's also a shrinkage reducing admixture. And I hope Sika never finds out about it because they'll start charging us more. But it's a miracle drug. Well, you see what someone did at 7 days on that last trial batch. But we've been using it for a year and a half now, and we're trying to put it in a lot of mixes because our 5-sack mix in the trial batch did just shy of 7,000 of this stuff. 5-sack.
Well, if you mixed it with those killer whale aggregates, we'd be pushing 10K.
Well, yeah, they're not coming to Fresno, Ken.
Okay.
It happen.
On killer whale aggregates, we'll end it there. We're about 20 minutes over, but we really appreciate you joining us, Doug. Thank you for everything that you do in our community. So we really appreciate it.
Well, thanks. I admire you people so much. It's simply amazing what you're doing with YMF.
Appreciate it.
Hey,
all right.
Finish them up.
Yeah. Finish up, and people can reach out to you at your email. What is your email for that?
dtaylor@outbackmaterials.com.
Great. All right. Have a good evening, everyone.
You too.
Yep. Thanks everybody for coming.